We are Group 2 from Woodlane Village, walking on Blackwater. The Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines crisis as a time of great danger, difficulty, or doubt, when problems must be solved or important decisions must be made. As previously mentioned, our specific focus will be on empowering the community through analysis and call for action on the Blackwater crisis in Woodlane Village. This presentation will be structured so as to fully inform you on the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, and the why. It is so critical for us to share this knowledge and to move on this issue now. We focus on the now and acting sooner rather than later.
South Africa is known as the country of contrast, and this contrast covers various topics, themes, and aspects. Due to social, economical, and technical differences, a clear distinction was made between living conditions and lifestyles. Within these contrasts, informal settlements emerge and have only grown over the past decade. These settlements represent the inescapable injustices and unlawful socio-economic systems present in South Africa. Looking at these diversities, we realize it is impossible to understand and comprehend without delving into the truth within these settlements. Woodlane Village is located between some of Pretoria's most affluent estates, and this emphasizes the contrast even more. Our research will expand into the mapping of Woodlane Village on a macro, meso, and micro level. Key issues have been identified, and the water situation within the settlement will be analysed and unpacked. Water and sanitation were predominant themes that came up in this year's research. Through quantitative and qualitative data, the condition of the water, the comfort of accessing water, and the water systems within the settlement will be voiced. This will lead to the conclusions to equip the community with sufficient information to face the issue at hand.
In 2019, it was found that 1 in 3 people globally do not have access to safe drinking water. Today, over 2 billion people live in water-stressed countries, which is expected to be exacerbated in some regions as a result of climate change and population growth, according to the World Health Organization. This is why NASA have speculated that World War III will be fought over water scarcity. In 2018, Cape Town experienced a water shortage crisis, which incited fear around day zero. During this time, Cape Town residents were rationed to 50 litres of water. This is still more than the average water use in informal settlements around this time, which stood at 40 litres per person per day. So they were being rationed more than what they were using. Today, we'll be focusing on evidence of vast imbalances and systematic failure in Woodlane Village, contributing to water scarcity and adverse implications such as the prevalence of Blackwater.
This is a map of Woodlane Village. The heat map indicates the areas where we walked, Blackwater was noted, and concerns regarding the situation were voiced.
Due to the ongoing court cases, Woodlane Village exists in a purgatory state of intervention, which leads to an exacerbation of the current conditions. Our research inquiry is a critical assessment of the systematic failure within Woodlane Village over the past 18 months. To unpack this, we will begin by using 3 lenses: social, ecological, and technical. These dimensions enable us to take on a multi-disciplinary approach. We will define these lenses according to the social, ecological, and technical systems sets. A set lens aids in identifying system vulnerabilities and highlights multi-dimensional adaptation strategies. Social aspects discussed include social systems, narratives, observations, health, and safety. Ecological aspects discussed include the flow of water on site, land erosion, wetlands, and stormwater reticulation, as well as the flood risks. Technical aspects refer to the infrastructure and engineering components of a system or a situation. When these lenses are overlapped, it highlights the interlinked relationship. Socio-technological illustrates how society is dependent on functioning technological systems designed to meet the needs of society. Socio-ecological indicates to us that ecological systems provide resources for social systems and consequently benefit from social stewardship.
We will first look at the social lens. As the observers, we realize that Blackwater is a prevalent issue. People don't have drainage systems, and as a result, most of the grey water is discharged onto the streets. We noted that pets and children often move and play around the Blackwater, and that relates to serious health concerns, all of which will be unpacked going forward. The most noticeable element was the stench of the Blackwater infiltrating every person's daily lives. We looked at the daily commute to access water due to the systematic failure of the tanks not being filled often enough, nor to its full capacity. Limited access to water causes the community to look for alternative resources. Through this process, the social aspect of gathering around the water tanks dissipates. To access water, the community members begin their commute out of the settlement to the nearest water source. These trips are completed multiple times per day for sufficient supply. These journeys create pedestrian lanes which contribute to the erosion and the stagnation of Blackwater directly linked to health issues. It is evident that the systematic failure does not only impact the social environment around the tanks. Our approach during our fieldwork was to take on the role as listeners. These stories form part of our why and emphasize the problem at hand. We realized a gap in our questionnaire as to options of water access points. Looking at the significance of water and how they affected three key elements. Previously, there was considerable activity happening around the JoJo tanks. Collecting water and completing tasks around the water tanks forms part of most people's daily lives. Over the past month, we've observed that activity around these tanks drastically decreased. This year, we saw people moving away from water tanks and completing activities such as washing at their homes or in the various streets. These tanks are no longer social environments, but mostly an element of survival. Considering communications, people previously used these tanks as a communication platform. These tanks played an integral role when it came to election seasons and community meetings. In 2023, we noted that this communication node has shifted and the meeting place has changed from the water tanks to the sports field. This is reinforced through the survey data, in which 39.6% of people indicated that they meet at the sports field, where only 2% sometimes meet around the water tanks. Focusing on the children and playscapes, these water tanks were safe to play around and to be supervised by parents and guardians. Due to the lack of social activity around the tanks, we saw that children are often playing in the street and in unsupervised interactions with the Blackwater. According to Jonathan Parkinson, the limited public spaces between houses tempts children to play around litter and stagnant water. The community faces challenges on various platforms due to the lack of accessibility to water resulting from failed systems management and a lack of infrastructure.
The survey indicated that almost half of the interviewees don't have regular access to water, but when it comes to the collection of water, the community has certain regulations and unwritten rules in place. In some instances, there will be a community member or leader enforcing these rules, but because of the hostility and violence that can occur, these regulations aren't always present. When water is accessible in the settlement, it is from JoJo tanks. The community leaders helped identify three typologies of JoJo tanks: always filled, sometimes filled, and never filled. Of the 10 tanks, we identified 6 are always filled, 3 are sometimes filled, 2 of which had maggots in recently, and 1 is never filled. Even then, they are often only filled to half capacity. According to the community leaders, this is because the municipality is only responsible for filling tanks they have supplied. The others have been supplied by the community. The pipeline is indicated on the map at a total travel distance of 1.2 kilometers away from the settlement, and the river where water is sometimes collected is at a total travel distance of 1.43 kilometers away. If these tanks are filled to full capacity, each person should have access to 4.8 litres per day, which is less than a tenth of what each person should have access to, according to the World Health Organization. On half of its capacity, community members get approximately 1.2 litres of water per person per day. Looking at these statistics, Woodlane Village currently faces inhumane conditions regarding access to water.
The water collected is used for doing their laundry, washing dishes, and bathing. After speaking to the community leaders about the Blackwater, they specified some of the things that are in it. There are unwritten rules within Woodlane Village prohibiting people to discard of any other forms of waste in the streets, but people don't always adhere to them. They believe that the Blackwater consists of grey water, rat poison, people's waste, and ablution buckets get discharged as well. Chemical engineers from UP couldn't confirm the exact contents, but could confirm the risks associated with the samples. According to the department, acceptable chemical oxygen demand (COD) levels for different water types can range from less than 10 milligrams per litre for high quality drinking water to several hundred milligrams per litre for wastewater. The recommended levels of ammonium in water can vary depending on local regulations and guidelines. A non-enforceable guideline for ammonium has been established in drinking water at 1 milligram per litre to protect the aesthetic properties of drinking water. The COD levels in the Blackwater went up to 6,177.5 milligrams per litre and the ammonium up to 3,140.5 milligrams per litre. To establish what a health risk is, according to the National Institute of Health, a health risk is the chance or likelihood that something will harm or otherwise affect your health. Working in collaboration with the clinic at Woodlane Village, we got given statistics, reports and observations over the past year. According to a professional health worker at the clinic, Ms. Beeford, morbidity, acute lower respiratory infection, and functional diarrhea fall under the top 5 diagnoses of 2022. Recognizing that there are some unspecified causes, they suspect and are highly concerned that the Blackwater plays a key role. Blackwater is not only a health risk due to physical contact, but it also affects the air quality. Urban Better runs Citizens for Clean Air, led by Monica Kamakua. They provided a sensor which we took into the settlement to capture data on the sources of air pollution encountered. The sensor measured in real time the fine particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide. According to Urban Better, the nitrogen dioxide level should be between 0 and 50 and the fine particulate matter below 12 micrograms per cubic meter. When looking at the map and the air quality data around the Blackwater, it is clear that it spiked. The nitrogen dioxide levels are between 101 and 649, and the particulate matter between 35.5 and 160.4 micrograms per cubic meter. The results fall in the range of the air quality index that is a clear indication that the air quality can be classified as unhealthy and unsafe. According to Ms. Beeford, they are very aware of cases at the clinic where children have rashes and burn-like wounds. The health professionals suspect that it is caused by flies and maggots in the Blackwater. These symptoms, which have been observed by the clinic, are all typical symptoms of myoses, which is the infection of fly larvae or maggot in human tissue.
The ecological lens. When you arrive at the entrance to the settlement, you are greeted by an area of Blackwater. Walking through the settlement, we noticed multiple areas, some of stagnating and some of flowing Blackwater. This prompted us to further ask the questions of where is this water coming from. This is a map of the longest open channel of Blackwater in Woodlane Village, which were documented on ArcGIS. Let's look at some quick mathematical estimations. As established earlier, assuming that each household gets their 33 litres per day, of the 97 households interviewed, 60.8% or 59 said that they throw their wastewater into the road. Assuming that a third of this collective water is not used and thrown into the streets, this contributes to about roughly 655 litres of Blackwater per day, 4,585 litres of Blackwater per week, 18,300 litres of Blackwater per month, and 239,000 litres of Blackwater per year. Comparing our findings to previous year's documentation, we noticed two main things. The areas that are significantly affected by Blackwater bodies have increased. Some of the large areas of Blackwater flow have shifted throughout the site. Woodlane Village is situated across a watershed, meaning that the site is on a hill sloping downwards with rivers on two sides of it. This means that natural water ultimately flows away from the settlement situating Woodlane Village on a hill. Therefore, Blackwater gathers towards the edge of the settlement. We can see on the map the areas of heavy erosion are increasing in number. The erosion on site ranges from being small rills to deep gullies. Rills are small channels and streams formed during soil erosion, and gullies are trenches cut into the land by erosion of an accelerated water stream. The factors affecting these trenches in Woodlane Village can be categorized into two groups, man-made and physical factors. The physical factors contributing to these Blackwater trenches are the topography, soil properties, stormwater runoff, and vegetative cover. The man-made factor in Woodlane Village is the improper treatment of the roads. Through people pouring water into the streets, accelerated streams of water are created, which worsens the erosion of Blackwater trenches. Some of these trenches are purposely dug by community members in an attempt to create viable drainage systems. However, much like the natural soil erosion sends soil-laden water downstream, Woodlane Village community members dispose of their physical waste in the streets, which can create layers that block Blackwater flow. Due to the topsoil erosion occurring on site, there is the contribution to the degradation of this natural watershed. This means that water and flows now struggle to leave sites adequately and efficiently, and that the soil has a lower capacity for water retention, leading to an increased risk of flash floods during heavy rainfalls. This map indicates the 28% of residents and the 32% of residents that we spoke to that indicated concerns over flooding and heavy rain respectively. This sketch illustrates the slope of the land experienced in Woodlane Village due to natural topography and erosion. We can see how due to water stagnation when there are heavy rains, water does not leave the site but rather rises until water levels enter the homes of residents. Once Blackwater floods inside the homes of residents, the damage to personal belongings and the property they do have is extensive. Without water to wash items such as carpets and others, many items are thrown away due to the smells and filth attached to them. Residents have indicated that many implement measures to mitigate or completely avoid the risk of Blackwater flooding. These interventions include, but are not limited to, ramped thresholds by doorways and elevating ground levels by stacking bricks. Nearby, there is a spruit and a river which both exist on either side of Woodlane Village's watershed. Due to the topography of the land, it is most likely that in the event if the Blackwater had to flood, it could drain towards these freshwater sources. Flooding does not only affect residents of Woodlane Village, as pollution can potentially spread through the waterways. This is a map of the rivers in Pretoria, focusing on Moraletta Park area that could be affected by Blackwater from Woodlane Village. This is a summary diagram compounding the root causes contributing to the Blackwater crisis. Not only does Blackwater crisis have many causes, it is also the root cause of many other issues within the settlement, such as but not limited to erosion on a circular basis, health, safety issues, and through the rivers poses a risk of spreading pollution to the other areas of Tshwane. We can see how the environmental systems respond to social stewardship and human engagement.
Lastly, we will look at the technical lens. Since partially formalizing the settlement in 2009, the city of Tshwane have been providing potable water and latrines to the village. It was decided that only basic services and sanitation would be provided and no permanent infrastructure in the form of municipal freshwater, stormwater, drainage, and sanitation would be provided. According to the World Health Organization, a basic service includes using an improved toilet or latrine that does not have to be shared with other households and having hand washing facilities with soap and water in the home. As evident on the map, the distribution of toilets is sporadic and not nearly enough to accommodate the 1,665 informal structures, forcing 30% of those who we interviewed to resort to the open vault and having to use alternative forms of ablution such as the indoor buckets. This lack of infrastructure is indicative of a systemic failure. Thus, it is of no surprise that the people resort to dumping these buckets in the Blackwater, despite common law forbidding them. These 4% of informal ablutions thereby contribute to the Blackwater volume and matter. The Unit for Urban Citizenship first noted evidence of drainage system implementation in 2020. In 2021, the UUC noted that residents started investing their time and money into a 3-phase drainage system. The site poses many challenges as it is densely populated and space is limited due to narrow street dimensions. Due to constraints in the system, it was never fully realized. It served as a record of galvanized community initiative full of potential, but currently a disjointed system. This year we mapped informal drainage infrastructure. There is evidence of existing stormwater channels of various materiality. Upon close inspection, many appear to be blocked, broken, and non-operational. Community leaders indicated that the system was not intended to merely move Blackwater from one household to another. They informed us that it is up to individual households to invest in these piping systems. Due to financial constraints, it is not a viable option for everyone. Because these pipes are not fully connected system, the issue of Blackwater remains highly visible along these interventions. What is evident is that the community has a strong network and possesses the ability to rebuild themselves, as evidenced through the spontaneous implementation of drainage pipes, but requires large-scale social galvanization and further financial investment. We noticed that other initiatives such as the grey water catchment systems at the creche in Woodlane Village. This is used in the school to water their vegetable garden. However, this particular system was not observed in other parts of the settlement. Further investigation indicates that this was not a community-led initiative, but rather brought in by SAKs during COVID-19 for improved sanitary practice. This is an example of a top-down intervention. These were interventions wherein the community did not take the lead. The lack of community ownership meant that it is not widely used or accepted. Therefore, there is a lack of these interventions in the settlement outside of the creche. It has been recognized that top-down participatory approaches do not address community needs, and little trust is gained.
We looked at the past 18 months. Now we must ask ourselves, what does this mean for the next 18 months? It is clear that the Blackwater crisis requires immediate emergency intervention.
Through the process of collaboration and rigorous data collection and analysis, we can see that Blackwater and Woodlane Village is a serious concern. Through making this research available, we are convinced that intervention is possible and that the emerging voices of Woodlane Village will be heard.